3 months ago, I left a 27-year career as a professional automotive mechanic. I have zero regrets. Dealership owners and service managers seem to be incapable of understanding that professional techs are sick and tired of being taken for granted and treated like we're expendable and disposable assets. The tables are turning. Professional techs have been leaving the trade in record numbers. As we leave, we're told they have drawers full of resumes and techs pounding on the door trying to get in. It's somewhat gratifying to watch their help wanted ads renewed week after week and month after month. We're expendable and easily replaced, remember. They resort to bribing the techs they have left into recruiting for them. Wouldn't it be easier and likely cheaper to just treat the techs appropriately in the first place?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting, thought-provoking episode of the Jaded Mechanic Podcast. My name's Jeff, and I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection and insight into the toils and triumphs of a career in automotive repair. After more than 20 years of skin, knuckles, and tool debt, I want to share my perspectives and hear other people's thoughts about our industry. So pour yourself a strong coffee or grab a cold Canadian beer and get ready for some great conversation.
"3 months ago, I left a 27-year career as a professional automotive mechanic. I have zero regrets. Dealership owners and service managers seem to be incapable of understanding that professional techs are sick and tired of being taken for granted and treated like we're expendable and disposable assets. The tables are turning. Professional techs have been leaving the trade in record numbers. As we leave, we're told they have drawers full of resumes and techs pounding on the door trying to get in. It's somewhat gratifying to watch their help wanted ads renewed week after week and month after month. We're expendable and easily replaced, remember. When job postings don't work, billboards don't work, word of mouth doesn't work, they resort to bribing the techs they have left into recruiting for them. This isn't a signing bonus for a new employee. This is a monetary reward for existing employees talking their friends and peers into working with them. Wouldn't it be easier and likely cheaper to just treat the techs appropriately in the first place? It's not the young techs leaving, not the oil changers or the apprentices. It's the seasoned techs leaving. The shop foremen. The individuals that know their value. They've simply had enough of the disrespect. We're walking out with more than our heads held high. We're walking out with decades of experience, decades of training, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in special tools and equipment. These are our assets. Assets that the dealerships take for granted and treat as their own. The industry has to change. Owners and managers have known about it for years and have done nothing about it. I'm not saying there aren't good techs left, but I'm sure as hell saying that those that are left need to capitalize on the fact that they are an irreplaceable asset and start demanding what they're worth.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another thought-provoking, excellent episode of the Jaded Mechanic Podcast. What you just listened to was a very good friend of mine, Dan Litchertson's. Dan put that post up a little over 3 years ago in a Facebook group. It got shared and it got some major traction. At the time I hadn't met Dan, I didn't know Dan's story. Dan turned out that Dan lives in my little corner of the world, Kingston, Ontario. And but that post that Dan put up resonated with so many people. It kind of put me on this way in an indirect way of realizing the kind of skill set and quality of tech that's leaving this industry. So tonight, we're going to talk to Dan. We're going to get to know Dan. We're going to hear what Dan has done since Dan put that post up and where Dan's gone. And I can tell you, I know Dan well. He is a phenomenal technician. He has a ton of experience. He is a salt of the earth kind of gentleman. He's everything that a shop owner would want. And yet he washed his hands of it all and walked away from it. And he's going to tell you his story tonight. And I think you're all going to really, really take something away from his story. It's going to rub some people the wrong way. But I want people to just hear Dan's story and think about what Dan did and realize that, you know, when you have the skills that Dan has, you can go anywhere you want to go. So without further ado, how's Dan tonight?
I'm pretty good, thanks.
Good, man. Good. So, Dan, tell us, after that long-winded intro, are you still a tech, Dan?
I carry the license. I keep it renewed. I keep it current just in case.
Mm-hmm.
but I am no longer a practicing automotive tech.
Right. And
I don't think it'll ever leave me completely, but
yeah.
no, I don't do it for a living.
Yeah. So everybody, Dan, you left the industry and you went to work at a factory, but not just any factory, right? You're working at the local Goodyear tire factory in Napanee, Ontario, Canada, which is about, what do we say, Dan, 45 minutes from where we are right now?
It was a 25-minute drive for me,
Yeah.
so it's really not that far.
Yeah.
I mean, I've since moved just outside of Kingston, but
Mhm.
now it's a 20-minute drive.
Yeah. And you've been at the plant how long now?
July 2019, so just about 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few months of that was COVID. We were shut down, and 6 months of that was in a classroom. But I've been a practicing, I guess you'd call it industrial mechanic now, for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I feel like a first or second year apprentice again.
Because they went through quite a blitz around here, didn't they? In terms of trying to, could we say, Dan, that they were actively trying to recruit what we would call up here licensed automotive technicians?
Yeah, absolutely.
To work in the plant. Because I know, like, I saw the ad when I was off on COVID for almost a year. When I was laid off, I went through the process, did the interviews, did the testing, ended up, my personality would have, as the experts say, would have clashed. Hard to believe, right? But you work with a lot in your day to day. You work with a lot of really skilled, what we call up here, licensed Class A, some master level at the dealer level, right? The OE level.
Yep.
Technicians that have left the industry to go work at essentially a factory fixing machinery that builds Goodyear tires. Mm-hmm. So what's that like with the like, I don't think you had any kind of difficulties transitioning at all, right?
Yes and no. I have had some issues wrapping my head around AC electrical.
Yeah.
Why the hell is there a third wire? I just, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. That was the biggest thing. And the other thing was just realizing that everything in there can kill you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But other than that, for the most part, it's nuts and bolts.
Yeah. Yeah. You said, you said last night you carry most of your tools that you need, like pretty much in your pockets, Yeah.
I wear coveralls, and some guys wear just pants and shirts and uniforms and carry a little tool pouch. But 90% of what we do with a set of metric and standard Allen keys, a small pair of channel locks, an adjustable wrench, and some duckbill pliers. It is what, and that's just my end of the plant. There's 3 areas of the plant, so I deal with a lot of steam and hydraulics, but that's, 90% of what I do, that I'm comfortable with that. And then of course I've got a big toolbox that we roll around, and it's nothing like the box that I have in my home garage now. It's not my big Snap-on Epic, but
occasionally
I'll tell you, I never used an adjustable wrench when I was wrenching on cars.
I'd be lying if I said I never did. I've used them all the time. They make a great hammer. Once in a while, you'll grab a voltmeter, right? And once in a while, you might, some of the guys in there do a bit of welding and stuff. But like, it's night and day difference, right?
Yeah.
So now, give us your backstory, because it's fascinating. So
I started in the trade in the early 90s. I did a year at university and quite quickly realized that it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up taking a summer job at a speed shop in Nepean, Ontario. And I think I was driving a 63 Galaxy at the time. This was 91 or 92.
Yeah.
And I got the job pumping gas at this little gas station and speed shop, and one thing led to another, and they got really busy and asked if I knew my way around a toolbox and a way around a car. And I said, well, I guess I've been kind of car crazy since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And they said, who did all the work on your Galaxy? Well, I did.
Mhm.
Well, come give us a hand in the shop. And that turned into an apprenticeship. And I had a great time doing it. I cut my teeth working on tri-power. I guess, what was it? It would have been a 59 Cadillac. The first job I ever did was rebuild 3 2-barrel carbs on a 59 Cadillac.
The tri-power. That's so cool. Yeah.
And then of course went through the height of the 5-liter Mustang craze.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
I've always been a bow tie guy, but I really like those Fox platform cars. So
I was always
still have a soft spot for them.
I was always a bow tie guy too until I got around the Mopar stuff, and then I don't know if it was just repeated blows to the head or whatever, or sniffing too much gasoline. But I mean, it was I just something about those. The fact that they were ugly.
I can see the attraction because I've got a bit of a soft spot for them, and I've been without a project car for a decade.
Yeah,
for many reasons, and we can get that later on. Just the whole trade killed it for me. It was a hobby and a passion, and turned into a career, and the career killed the hobby and passion.
Yeah,
but I recently bought another. I bought another project car, and I'm starting to get some of that passion back. And
I was going to ask, is that a Mercury Zephyr or is it
it's actually it's a 78 Fairmont Futura.
Yeah. Okay.
And I bought it from a guy who could be me in a parallel universe. He's the same kind of guy that I am, and he loves cars, and he's got multiple cars, and it just it worked out, and I gained a friend by buying that car, so I'm pretty happy with it.
That's the best.
It's not going to stay Ford powered, it's of course I'm gonna piss everyone off and shove an LS into it.
Well, that's how you fix everything, right? That's really
I'm going to make it fast, cheap, and reliable.
That's right. I love that. It just cranks up the blue oval faithful when they lift the hood and you've got an LS in it. And like our guest on Tuesday, that the episode dropped, young Colin. You want to see head roll? He's got a Porsche with an LS swapped in it. So
awesome.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, let's be real. That's an upgrade on a Porsche. I don't care what anybody says. In reliability, easily.
So anyway. But before we get too far off track, I started my venture into the trade at a speed shop. Did a couple of years there, and the market dropped out, and we hit a massive recession. And I ended up leaving Ottawa area and heading back to Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a struggle to find some work, and I ended up working for free for a speed shop here in town. I just wanted the hours towards my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And that turned into not really a job, but I would hang out and help out, and got to meet some people in the industry. And then I got to meet a bunch of the independent owner operators of small shops.
Mm-hmm.
And then I quickly decided that I wanted to spend my apprenticeship not in one spot, but move around from independent garage to independent garage and learn as much as I can about every brand that I could.
Right.
And gain as many skills as I could. And I did that. It wasn't until I was just about done my apprenticeship, which actually stretched into 5 years for me because of the recession in the industry.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I was done my apprenticeship that I ended up into shifting into dealership life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I got married and started to build a family. It was I needed the security and the benefits.
Yeah.
What I didn't count on was flat rate, but I did okay. Okay. And then I went from dealership to dealership. Got pretty close to master level in Chrysler. Did a bunch of stuff with Ford, late 90s for Ford, and it wasn't very good stuff. I hated working on it. You ever get that feeling where your fingers just want to, they don't want to touch the wiring. It was the way the connectors felt in your hands. We weren't wearing gloves back then. I couldn't stand working on Fords. Now I own one. Anyway, I went from dealership to dealership, and I got a little bit jaded, as many of us do, at the Chrysler dealership. And I think it's the same one that you worked for.
Oh, that was That place was a cesspool. We've talked about it, and we won't talk about it here because it's just going to, I'll probably, if I talk about it long enough, I'll call out the person that I feel is the most responsible at the time for why everything went bad, right? Old McDonald. Yep. And it just was, yeah. I mean, that was the dealership that promised me the world, right? That got me to leave Ottawa and come back to Kingston, where, I'd grown up here too, right? And I'd left a really good lucrative dealership job to be closer to my family. And that dealer promised me a lot. And of course, like a lot of dealers, a lot of shops, a lot of dealers, they didn't promise. You walk in and, I didn't walk in with any kind of attitude. I walked in with confidence. I knew what I could do. That's why they had several times tried to recruit me. And that's why they finally got me. They needed a guy that could do drivability electrical. And hey, well, when I got there and their established guy, his hours took a hit, all of a sudden they pulled the rug out from underneath me and just took the labor ops away from me. Not because, and this is the thing, people are going to go, oh, you must have had too many comebacks. I had zero comebacks. Wasn't that I couldn't do the work. Wasn't that I couldn't get the work done. Wasn't that I was, doing anything shit, none of that. It's
was it a unionized shop when you were there?
So it had I think the union had been gone 2 years, from what I understand. It was still so like a bleeding wound in terms of like you didn't dare say that word, right? Like you saw, if you whispered it, guys would look over at you like, why did somebody say the U word? The rumors I heard is it cost them over $1 million to get the union out. The union had done a lot of good things for them in terms of getting them decent pay, getting them better shop equipment, getting them paid holidays, getting them benefits. And so the people, though, the guys that had walked across the picket line were still in the building and were really looked after. And you could see that even when they finally, I guess it cost them over $1 million to get the union to go out. It had to have eventually enough staff felt the union had done what it was supposed to do, and they voted it out, which is a good thing for the owners, right? Yeah, you don't want one. And this is not a whether I'm not a union person. I don't think, if you're running your business properly, I think unions mostly waste money. They don't necessarily make you more.
I completely agree with you. Part of my hiring process there was the fact that I firmly believe, still do to this day, that I can stand on my own 2 feet. Mm-hmm. And if I mess up, I've got big shoulders. I'll own it.
Yeah. So when you were trying to go, or when you had gotten there, was the union there when you were there?
The union was there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand what I was paying union dues for because they weren't doing anything for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to come in early, and it's just the way I am. I'm up at the crack of dawn every day. Yeah. So as soon as there was somebody opening the doors at the dealership, I was right behind them with my coffee in hand, and I would if I had something left over from the night before, which wasn't often because I always like to stay late to finish it, mm-hmm. I would mm-hmm. get to work on it. And of course that brewed some bad blood because people thought that I was trying to float my hours by working extra time. Well, I mean, anyone could have done it. It sure. wasn't. I was just trying to get done what I had sold.
Yeah,
and it was difficult there. I met some great guys. I think there are some good technicians that came out of that place, but there was a lot of underhandedness and backstabbing. When I started there, I was still an apprentice. I wasn't licensed, and they brought me in to do automatic transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember that was the one thing that I hadn't done in the trade yet.
Yep.
And I was terrified of them. To me, looking at the inside of a valve body is the equivalent of brain surgery.
Yep.
And I was terrified of it, but I took the job, and I was very methodical and clean about how I would take stuff apart. And I remember coming in one day, and all the parts of this transmission that I had taken apart and laid out so carefully were just jumbled up in a big mess on my bench. And I was what the hell am I supposed to do now? And it got worse because, there were guys there, and this is akin to the podcast that I listened to today that dropped Tuesday. You were talking about training. I took every training course that they would throw my way. If it meant I was out of the shop for 8 hours, they paid me the 8 hours and they paid me the travel time, but they also paid the hotel bill and they gave us a meal allowance. So what also came out of that was I gained a skill set. And that was right about the time when Chrysler was mandating that the tech that did the warranty repair had the skill set to do so.
Yes. Yep.
So, there was 2 or 3 of us in the dealership that had the skill set to do one thing. Here's this young apprentice that was gaining skill set after skill set after skill set. And it wasn't even licensed yet, but I was getting, when the industry was slow, I was available to do work. And it turned into fuel and electrical and drivability, which soured old McDonald. And there was another guy that he's at the other Chrysler dealership now, and he and I got to be good friends when I worked there, and we went to training together, and we helped each other out. It's a flat rate world, but if I was on a waiting list doing nothing, I'd go over and help him bang off the rear brakes when he was doing front.
Exactly.
It was the same deal when he was standing around doing nothing and I was hustling to get a bunch of stuff done. He'd come over and help me out, and the looks we got, man.
Yeah, it scared
we
people.
Didn't care who got the hours. It was just, it's what you did. You helped out.
I can remember so many times at every dealer I've ever worked at, like that was just especially tire season, and you've done it too. That's kind of how you do it, because that's how you get through it, right? It doesn't matter whether they're his tires or your tires. If you're both doing a set at the same time, because that's how scheduling goes. You grab the balancer, he grabs the, or vice versa, and you just get them done, because like you've got so many appointments that day for them.
Yeah.
That's the only way you get it done. If you stand there like a jerk off and block both machines and you try to hustle through and without and say, no, I don't want to help you because, you're not going to help me, it doesn't work. I wish I knew how many people have gone through that dealer and have been pushed out because of that, that name that we said, because you ran into that wall. I ran into that wall.
Yeah.
Lots of
he
other
wasn't
people.
He wasn't the reason I left, but he was probably part of it. He was probably part of it because management wouldn't stand up for me. The union was out. I don't want to say I got the union out, but I know that my vote against the union was certainly part of getting the union out. And I did exactly what they wanted me to do. I hustled. I did every course they asked me to do. I got every specialty that they asked me to take. When they asked for me to take over the front end rack after the front end guy moved on to his own shop, I didn't really want to, but I did it. Somebody had to stand up. And I made the agreement that if you'll allow me to keep all my other skills so that I can do those other jobs while I'm doing front end stuff, then yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it was okay for a little while. And then they started getting a whole lot of blowback probably from other techs.
Yeah.
But, and then they wouldn't stand behind what they promised. And that that just irks me.
Yeah.
If you say you're going to do something, you damn well do it.
Yeah,
that's the way I grew up. That's the kind of man I am. That's what I demand, and that's what I expect. Yeah,
you've heard me use the analogy like a dangling carrot, right? Don't do that to me, right? Don't put it on a string that I can't touch it. Like either tell me I'm not having it, or give it to me and show me the path that I need to take to get the goal, and I'll go on the path. It's not a problem, right? I understand that I have to work for what I want. Yeah, I found that dealer to be very, very toxic and very, people pretended like they were your friend, but they were they were snitches and bitches everywhere. They were constantly, this guy's doing this. It was like high school all over again. And I mean,
and the worst was, one of the service advisors was the guy that had been there the longest. He was like that too. He was, he'd cut your throat.
He was the one that had crossed the picket line with the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another guy that nobody else liked because he was loud and kind of brash, but I got along great with him. And I got along great with him because I was happy to adjust my labor times a little bit here and there to help a customer out. especially if they were going to do, multiple things that I had recommended. And like yourself, I was always an advocate for only doing what the car needed.
Yeah.
And never would I ever do an unnecessary repair. I couldn't stand the wallet flushes. I wanted to earn my living right. And I kind of made it my mission throughout my career as an automotive mechanic to try to dispel the myth that we were out to rip people off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've said it before. I've never seen a car that was over maintained, but I've seen a lot of services that didn't need to be done as often as they were done.
Yeah.
So, maintenance is maintenance and repairs are repairs. And a car needs both without question. But, nothing irked me more than just watching guys, make 8 hours by lunch because they had four flush machines going. And have I had four flush machines going on a car at once? You're damn right I have. Right? It came in sold.
So have I.
Yeah. So I'm not going to be the hypocrite and say that I never made money like that. But it wasn't, I had a skill set that allowed me to take a broken car or a car that didn't work right, give them the analysis on what it needed, and give them back a repaired car. If somebody values production more than that ability, then anymore in my career, I don't jive with that particular mindset or management, whatever you want to call them, right? It's not how I was brought up. It's not how I came up. And it's hard for me now to just stomach that. It doesn't impress me. You've heard me all say, I don't care. Wow, he made 20 hours today. What did he fix? Oh, nothing. He just hooked up some machines and flushing fluid out. Cool. Wow. You're the man. So how did you wind up at Toyota?
Well, I left that Chrysler dealership and I went to an independent shop across the street. It was a used car dealer.
Yeah, okay. I know the one.
It was they got themselves into some hot water.
Yes,
and anyway, that was I made sure that the whole service department was above reproach on that. And I took that because they gave me a guaranteed salary. And I basically got to run the show and run it the way I wanted to, which meant I could recondition the vehicle to a standard that I was comfortable signing my name to. And I was doing retail repairs and I was able to interact with the customers. And I was service manager. I was the service writer. I was the warranty administrator. And I was the instructor because, I had at least one apprentice under me at the same time. Which was great until, of course, fit hit the shan, and that business ground to a halt.
Yes, it did.
I don't think they did anything that any other dealership didn't do. I think they just did it very successfully, and the old boys club sent the powers that be crashing down on them.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, the one of the owners of that hightailed it out of province, and he had always treated me with the utmost respect and dignity. And I was going through a nasty separation and divorce, and he offered me the opportunity to follow him out east.
Yeah.
So I did. It wasn't very long that I was out east, and I quickly realized he was full of a lot of empty promises. And one thing led to another, and we went our separate ways.
Yeah.
And that's when I went back to dealer life. And I worked a couple of years at Honda, which again, I really enjoyed. Great bunch of guys, great product.
Yeah, fantastic product. If you want to make
fantastic product,
great customer base.
Not only that, but it was a product that you could believe in. I could have spent the rest of my career working for Honda, except for, the general manager of that place was an absolute sleazeball. I was extremely productive. I had zero comebacks. I was the guy they called out to talk to a customer to explain a difficult situation, even if it wasn't the job that I was doing. But I've always had this uncanny ability to talk to anyone on their own level, be it, I don't want to generalize, but a ditch digger, if you want to call it, I could get down on their level, or I could turn around and speak eloquently enough to explain a situation to a federal judge.
Yeah.
I've never had an issue doing that. In fact, I've always enjoyed doing that.
Yeah. My history too in the dealership for the longest time when I was in Ottawa was the same thing. It wasn't necessarily it was my customer, but if the advisors up front that I had a really good rapport with didn't know the answer to a question or customer wanted to know why it was something, they'd call me up and I'd come, and I wouldn't spend hours talking to them or half an hour. But I mean, there was more times than not that I probably spent 20 minutes at the advisor's desk filling the customer in on what was going to be done, why it should be done, why maybe the other shop that had attempted the repair didn't do the repair properly, and so on and so forth. Right. So, and I'm the same way as you. If you're confident in your skills and you have a reasonably good attitude, I don't have the best attitude, but if you have a reasonably good attitude, talking to anybody, they're all the same level, right? They're just, it's a customer relationship. That's it. I've never, a hockey player from the NHL could walk in. I'm going to talk to them the same way. You know what I mean? As somebody that's just works down the street at the grocery store and she needs her minivan. It's doing a weird thing. She won't stop me, but I treat them the same. It's the way how it should be done, right?
I agree.
Everybody's money is the same color. And, you've got to treat, like I was the same, you want to fix that car like your mother's driving it, right? You want to treat that customer like it's your mother's budget that you're thinking about. And it's always worked good for me. It's always been good.
It was, and Honda was lucrative. There was a lot of things that paid really, really well. A lot of them were unnecessary. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say a lot of them were unnecessary repairs, but they were mandated by the provincial biannual inspections.
Mm-hmm.
If here's an example, we all know that a Dodge truck ball joint has an allowable 60 thou play. Well, there was an allowable play according to Honda on an inner tie rod.
Mm-hmm.
But the ministry guidelines said you weren't allowed any play, which took precedent over manufacturer specs. So Honda was good enough. They would pony up and they would pay under warranty to keep the customers happy. So there was a lot of gravy that way. And the same with a bunch of, as every brand goes, there's a lot of stuff that you learn to do well and you learn how to do it properly and quickly. But there's a lot of things you have to learn to take a hit on too. Yeah. Somebody else described it. It might have been the podcast that I was listening to today, re-ringing a Camry. In this case, it was re-ringing an Odyssey van.
Yes.
You took a bath. It was a 12, 14-hour job. I don't care how good or how fast you are. And it paid $8.
Yep.
But you would do one of those for every 32 inner tie rods you replaced that paid, an astronomical amount of money.
Yeah. Or the really easy timing belts that all the Hondas had, right? And the water pumps and stuff like that and the control.
So at what point do you really want to bitch?
Yeah.
And anyway, we had a guy that went out sick, hospital ill, and he was halfway through re-ringing an Odyssey. And of course they needed it done. So they came to me and they said, look, this is an unusual situation, but will you finish this job? Absolutely. I will. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I will. Well, we can't guarantee, this guy's already been, I'm not going to drop names, but this guy's already been paid for the majority of it because he had spent most of the time on it. It was paid out.
Yeah.
We can't pay him on it. I'm like, I understand that, but it's got to be done. And I know the customers. I've worked on their vehicle before and actually spoke to them before. So yeah, I'll finish it up. Mm-hmm. Which I thought got me in the good graces with the service manager and the general manager. And it wasn't long after that I realized that the guy working next to me who had a fraction of the experience that I did and nowhere near the productivity that I maintained,
right,
and a much greater comeback rate than I had. I don't think I ever had. I had one comeback and I ended up proving that it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
Anyway, I found out that he was making $4 per flat rate hour more than I was. And, here I am working at 150, 160, sometimes 170% efficiency rate and not having any comebacks. And I find out that the guy next to me was making $4 per flat rate hour more than I was. So I questioned it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't rude about it. I went to the
No.
service manager, and the service manager said, "Oh, you'll have to talk to the general manager." So I asked to speak to the general manager, and I didn't come off strong, and I basically said to him, I know it's not any of my business, and I'm not going to discuss how I found out, but it's come to my attention that X employee is making $4 per flat rate hour more than I am. I have more mechanical experience. I haven't been at this dealership as long as him, but he's only been here 6 months longer than I've been. But I have more. By this time, I was Honda Gold certified.
Mm-hmm.
I have more training. What do I have to do to get to his level?
Yes.
Oh, you've got to keep your bay cleaner. Well, I could keep my bay cleaner, but we have cleaners for that every night, and that will I'll sacrifice productivity if you want me to make the bay spotless between every job. Blah 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 blah. He was just a greasy slime ball that would had his favorites of people that would go out partying and drinking with him, and if you weren't part of that crowd, so be it. I mean, that put the bug in my ear. Well, I'm not going to hang around this place because what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
I know my worth.
Yeah.
And I went and talked to the Toyota dealership literally across the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny. I went into that interview, and of course, it was a big dealer group.
Yeah.
And there's a process to go through when you're applying at a big dealer group. You have to sit in front of the board, and they ask you all these questions. And it was funny when I had first moved to Nova Scotia, this woman that I was dating had tried to get me into this other big dealer group. So they had called me in for an interview, and I had gone through this interview process once before, and I flipped it right around on them. Why should I come work for you? Let's look at this. You called me, so let's look at this as me interviewing you.
Yeah.
And that I mean, they were completely taken back, and I ended up not going to work for them.
Mm-hmm.
But here I was standing in front of the same board again, 2, 3, 4 years later, and not begging for a job, but saying, I'm not happy where I'm at, and you wanted me before. Perhaps we can work something out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I did. I mean, I had to shave the beard.
Yeah.
Because which hurt because, I've had my beard for a long time. Anyways, I shaved my beard to get the job. And that was the best dealership I ever worked at. Mm-hmm. I had the absolute best service manager, Craig Passmore, wherever you are out there. I think he's dealer principal, I think, at a Toyota dealership in PEI.
Good for him.
Stand up guy. He had your back for everything. He would make sure that you got paid for every last minute of time that you worked on it, whether it was retail or warranty.
Yeah. That
place never ran out of work.
Yeah.
All kinds of work. And I regretted leaving there, but it was an amazing stepping stone. I learned a heck of a lot. I learned what a real service manager and a really good dealership is to work for.
Let's back up a bit, not too far, but I want to. So when you talk about re-ringing the Odyssey, right? And this is a scenario that I think they come to you and they say, well, we can't pay you for that. The time's already been paid out. The tech has been paid. He is unable to finish the job. Like you said, he's in the hospital. Why do they not have like an apprentice that can come along in the shop? Because you and I have worked with them, right? They're they're being brought up, they're brought along. That can be one of those jobs where is a really good mentor opportunity for you and for the young apprentice to finish that job because he's already paid hourly anyway, right? And what a great experience. He would probably come at that job with such enthusiasm and vigor because maybe last week he was just doing recalls and oil changes. And now he gets to actually put an engine back together.
Yeah.
Why did they not?
Next thing you know, it's me and the mad scientist got to rip apart the block and change the piston rings you fried. Yeah. It would have been great to do that. It would have been great to do that, and I don't know why they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think I was the first person they asked.
Yeah.
But I think they came to me because they knew I wouldn't say no.
Right. Yeah.
Whether
and they knew it would get it done right. right? Yeah. Because you've heard me say, like, I will not donate my time anymore.
Yeah.
It's not to say that I've never done it. People hear me all the time and they're like, he's never done it. That's not true. I've donated lots of hours, right?
Yep.
Out of sheer guts and determination and pride if I have to know what's wrong with this thing.
Yeah.
But, it's always been in my mettle that it's going to be I decide when, not when somebody tells me. It doesn't matter who, right? The toolbox has got a set of wheels on the bottom of it for a reason. If I'm not okay with it, that means that it's not okay. If I'm willing to do it, it's because I see something that will pay off later. Right?
Yes.
I'll learn something. I'll get an experience. Like you said, I'll develop a skill set. I'll do it. If you come to me and tell me I have to, and I don't feel it's beneficial, and let's talk, 8 hours of your pay. Let's go above what you were getting paid then and say, easy math. Let's say you were getting $40 an hour and it's 8 hours. Right? That's $240. You mean to tell me there is a dealer owner out there that doesn't have $240 that they can pay to get a job done?
Oh, they absolutely do.
Of course they can. They've got $2,400. They've got $24,000. Money is not the issue with the dealers. They have the money. It's just the principle of we don't want to set precedents, right? And I think that's a key point with a lot of what I think has been where so much has gone wrong in this industry is that instead of looking at us as individuals and saying, if I do that for that person, everybody will expect the same. Instead of standing up and saying, I did that for that person because of these reasons. And it's not favoritism, right? It might be because of the situation, whatever.
Yep.
They just worry about what precedence is it set. And that's why I can't do the right thing. And we now, as a collective industry, have pretty much decided that you have to start doing more of what is the right thing to do because we're just not. I mean, look at it, right? Look at yourself. So you went on to Toyota and had a really good experience.
Yep, I had an amazing experience. It was the kind of place where there was something seriously wrong if you weren't making 110 hours per 80-hour pay period. Most of the time, we were making 140 and banking the 30 because 110 was the cutoff that would bump you into the next tax bracket, right?
Yeah,
and it was bad enough in Nova Scotia at the time. It was we were taxed at 49 to 50%. And then you're paying, you're again paying taxes at the gas pump, at the grocery store, blah, 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 blah. You know the routine.
Oh.
And at the same time, you still got to buy tools. You still got to stay current. It was, but still, it was a great place. And I regret leaving, but I still know people at that dealership and talk to them on a regular basis. But it's not the same place now because, the really great service manager was promoted and moved on, and now he's doing great things at another dealership.
Yeah.
But they should have had someone step up to take his place that would do things the way he did, because the positive morale in that shop was incredible. It was first break, so 10 o'clock every morning, the parts truck would take off and go to Timmy's and drive into the shop with everybody's coffee order.
Yeah.
And this came out of petty cash. It wasn't something that we paid for. It was, if we had a really, really good month, there would be a giant McDonald's breakfast for us one day. Right. It was just out of the blue. They showed the appreciation, and it's not like it was akin to the, thanks for all your help, we're going to have a pizza party for you.
Yeah.
Because they also ponied up and paid well. At that time, we all made really good money because the hours were there, but the hourly rate probably wasn't as strong as it could have been. But none of us complained because we were all, at the point we were getting into the high tax bracket.
Yeah. Yeah. Enough hours to go around, a fair distribution of the hours, the whole thing.
Yeah. There was never any argument. There were a couple of people that got fed a little bit, but I'm not going to say unjustifiably so. They'd been there for a million years, and they had cut their teeth, and they had earned their stripes or earned their wings, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing we talk sometimes where, I've seen it. I've worked with the I can still remember when the first dealer I worked at in Ottawa, there was a gentleman there that was at the time, he had to be 59, 60. Like he was getting really close to the retirement age. And every morning he came in and they gave him probably like 3 brake jobs. And then in the afternoon, they give him some oil changes and maybe a PDI. And he consistently made his 8 hours. He didn't tackle a timing belt on a Neon. He didn't tackle he was a beat up old man. They didn't have him pulling a transmission out of a Caravan. They just gave him, lower skilled work that he could consistently hit the time on, turn it out. He had no comebacks, no real issues. He wasn't too arrogant that if he had something on his hoist, he would ask what it was. He didn't bother. He wasn't one of these guys that would look at it like this and, pretend he didn't see something because he didn't want the warranty to know for fear of doing it, right? We've seen those cats at the dealership, right? Yeah. Like I didn't see that rear main leaking because I don't want to do the rear main. Yeah. He would write up everything that he was supposed to write up because he knew that he wasn't going to get saddled with it. And they just, for all intents and purposes, like you said, they took care of him. He'd been at the dealer over 20 years. His brother had worked at the dealer with him and dropped dead at that dealership. That breathed his last breath at the job right there. So, is that fed? No, it's not fed. It's taken care of. And I think but
if there was more of that in the trade, there would be less people leaving. Mm-hmm. I ended up leaving that dealership for a couple of reasons, but the main reason was it was time to come back to Ontario. It was time to be close to my aging parents. Mm-hmm. They needed some help. And it was time to be close to my children, who, I spoke to every day in the time that I was gone, but I spent 10 years away from. I spent every long weekend back in Ontario and every holiday back with them and had them out for visits and everything, but it wasn't the same thing. It was just time to come home. And I would have loved to have come right into the Toyota dealership when I came back. They were, in fact, that was my first stop. And they said, well, we know the service manager of the dealership you were at. We know him well, and we would love to have you on our team here. We just don't have room for you right now. Yeah. If you can stick it out and find another job to last you, 6 or 8 months, then you're going to be the first person we call. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I had such a wonderful experience at Toyota before. This is, I'm going to find something just to tide me over until I can get into this place because I've got that good feeling. And I did. I worked in a motorcycle shop for, I think it was close to 9 months. Mm-hmm. And really enjoyed that because that was a whole different kind of clientele. Can you imagine? Can you imagine having clientele that came in and were throwing their money at you? Yeah. Well, you know what? I have this amount of budget, so let's do this. And then you get halfway through it, and the customer calls you up and wants to speak to the guy working on his bike. You know what? Maybe I can find some more money to do this. And you start to do that, and he'd call you back the next week, when you're halfway through that big rebuild. You know what? If you're into it this far, let's do this. I'd never seen anything like it. And I got to ride motorcycles around. It was a cool job. Completely. I'd never had a service manager that said, you need to get more tattoos and grow your beard out longer. So that was a pretty cool place to work. But then Toyota called and the money wasn't there, right? So then Toyota called and said, hey, we've got a spot for you. And I don't think they'd even got the words out of their mouth. And I was running to my service manager's office to put my notice in because that's where I wanted to be. And I fully expected to be able to go from what I knew from the brand and the way Toyota wanted their dealerships run. I expected to come into the same thing. Yeah. And the demographic was so different between the East Coast and the Toyota dealership here. Yeah. I don't know what it was, but, I went from almost triple digit salary to barely being able to keep myself fed. Yeah. Yeah. It was a struggle to make. I'm just going to go out and say it. It was a struggle to make. I didn't even make $50,000 a year there. Yeah. And I was making 90 at the Toyota dealership on the East Coast. Yeah. What gives? It's the same product. It's the same warranty ops. It's the same.
How different was the door rate?
Not different at all.
So there you go.
Really, really close. So, I don't know what the changes. I don't know. But it started to get me more and more jaded, because then it was, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? And at first it was like I was the new guy. Okay, yeah. I want to prove I'm a team player. Sure, I'll go out and I'll scan that car in the parking lot. Or, you know what? Okay, I'll take a 0.2 hit just so we can sell this job.
Mm-hmm.
And but then it started to become more and more expected.
Yeah.
And it got sour. It got sour fast. And I really don't know what made me completely flip my train of thought, but I was sick and tired of it. I was, no, I'm not going to stand up for this. I will do anything that you want me to do. And I was the guy that they would seek out to do the hard stuff.
Yep.
That place had a old right-hand drive diesel Land Cruiser as a plow truck, and it would barely run. Yeah. And we were slow one winter, and the shop foreman at the time, who I ended up replacing, he was an amazing guy. He'd been there for 30 years. Anyway, he said, look, we're slow. You seem like a pretty bright lad. Do you want to take a crack at that old Land Cruiser and see if you can't fix it up a little bit? He goes, I'll generate a straight time work order for you and have at it. Yeah. Sure. Well, the next thing you know, I was in there, and I was learning how to tweak the pump and play with the wastegate a little bit, and the next thing you know, that thing was plowing snow like you wouldn't believe. And the guy that drove it, he came back in and he was cursing and swearing. I don't know what the hell you did to that thing, but it's never run that good. And no, it was a good feeling, because that was the kind of stuff that I like to do, right? Yeah. I like to do what other guys couldn't, or I shouldn't say couldn't, what other guys didn't want to do, because it wasn't lucrative. It wasn't the norm. It wasn't lucrative.
Yeah. The challenge gets addicting, eh? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't ever.
Like, what will make you give up time on a job, or what made you do this or made you do. Sometimes that ego thing just gets, to be able to say, puff your chest a little bit more the next day and go, man, that one was a kicker, but I kicked it finally. That's where I thrived in that environment. I don't know where it comes from. It's just something that, and I didn't fix them all. There's cars that I didn't fix. Right. Yep. There's cars that just kicked my butt, and we either ran out of time or ran out of money or whatever. We just never could get to the bottom of it. It was too intermittent, stuff like that. But I fixed enough of them that I had, I was proud of what I could do. And
at the end of the day, you have to get paid. And when the customer says enough's enough, I'm not paying for any more, that's you've got to agree to wash your hands of it too. And I never had an issue with that. I would work my guts out for someone as long as they were going to, keep paying for it. But I didn't create the flat rate lifestyle. I just was forced into it, and I didn't write the rules, but I was going to follow them.
Yeah. Was that, go ahead.
I was going to say, I ended up getting fairly jaded. The place went through some management changes, some ownership changes.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of good people, shoved out the door, and some real slime balls take their place.
Yeah.
And that led to me being more and more jaded. And then that amazing shop foreman that the place had for so many years decided he was done. Mm-hmm. And he went to bat and took me aside, and he goes, look, I'm going to be out of here in a year. I want you to take my place. I'm going to start grooming you. I'm going to start, putting a bug in all the upper management ears that I want you to take my place when I leave. Okay. Well, I really appreciate that. That made me feel good. It made me feel justified in doing all the hard work and all the extra things that I had done for so long.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it was like, the writing was on the wall. Mm-hmm. I was at that time, I'm 50 now, so I was 45, 46, starting to get sore. You can only pound it out on the concrete floors for so long. I started look like you're doing now. I was looking for the exit strategy, and the moving into the shop foreman position was what I had hoped would be my exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
In moving into that, I had to be at a certain skill level. That was just something that Toyota mandated. So that meant that this dealership that almost never sent anyone to training had to send me for training.
Right.
Which was okay. I was all right with that. But I remember talking to the instructor at the course, who is this Irish guy, and thick accent, but was he ever bright? Was he ever bright? And I remember telling him that I've got this idea that I might want to leave the industry and go into industrial mechanics. And he patted me on the shoulder and, Danny, my boy, I don't care what you have to do, whether you have to lie to them to get in there, you do what you have to do and you get in there.
Yeah.
And I didn't lie to them, but I went into the interview and I went through the mechanical aptitude test the same way you did, the one on the computer, and I came out of that. And I remember going to the HR guy and Larry, sorry I wasted your time.
Yeah.
There's no way I passed that. And he laughed and patted me on the shoulder, and actually you did really well. So and then I moved on to the 7 or 8 other interviews that got me into that place, and I don't want to say I sold myself, because I don't think I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my personality rang through, and it was a right fit. And so I'm in there now, and I haven't looked back.
How powerful is that, though, that the guy, your trainer at Toyota, right? How powerful is that your trainer at Toyota says to you, if you can leave the dealership and get into that industrial job, you do it, my boy. That we in the industry have got to acknowledge. And again, this is going to be a really dealer heavy conversation, but I mean, it translates. It goes to other places too. When you have trainers, because I've sat with lots of technical trainers, they're teaching guys in shops, not in dealerships. And they lament very similar things, have said, that's a gravy train with biscuit wheels, boy. Like, we have to realize that if the culture of the shops and the culture of the industry sometimes is how screwed up it must be. If you've got the people that are training and telling you to leave it, you know what I mean? Now, some people may say, well, that's a bad attitude, but it's not. They're looking at you, a talented guy, they know you, and going, hey, that's, you're aging out. You're at a particular dealership. And, they all talk to one another. They know that dealership that you were at, it's had some issues. It was going through some growing pains, you said. And I think we need to, if we would address the reality in the room a lot more in this industry, we wouldn't have the problem that we're having. So you went through the interview process. I went through that interview process. It was intense. It was a lot of questions, like sitting in that room with all those guys. I can't remember their names now. It's been a couple of years now since I did it. And I didn't get accepted because my attitude and personality is not the same as yours. But it wasn't a technical aptitude problem. That's what they said. They just said, we're not sure you would fit this environment. They're probably very right. And that's okay. No love lost. But you went into it and you've progressed pretty quick. Now, when I say that, before I say that, you have some other people that you have worked with that are just like yourself. They're mechanics that left dealerships. Some of them even left the dealer you had worked at, right? Another one I know from when I worked at the Hyundai dealer store here. He works at the plant. There's another young gentleman that worked when I worked at Nissan that now works with you at the plant. Like there's another one at the used car lot that the Nissan dealer owned, their top tech. He now works there. Like did we say that last night there's like 20 that you could probably name off the top of your head?
I started trying to count last night and I lost track at 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Because, there's 4 different shifts and there's 3 different areas of the plant, and we're so spread out that you can't possibly know everyone. But yeah, 11 or 12 I counted right off the top of my head.
Yeah. Former high performing automotive techs.
Yep, we were at the epitome of our game. You know, we were at the high point in our career. We were the most productive. We had all the experience, all the special tools, and we walked away.
Yeah.
And here's what happened. You know, when I left Toyota, I was making, that was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I was making $2 or $3 an hour more than I did in 2000 and 2001.
Yeah.
And you know, I know Dutch is an advocate for taking care of yourself, but you know, when you're only making 24, 25 bucks an hour, and you've only made 24, 25 bucks an hour your entire career, by the time you're clothing and feeding kids and paying a mortgage, and then on top of that, you're paying into dental and medical benefits and uniforms, there isn't anything left over to save. So here we had a rival trade seeking out the talent pool from another trade, because for whatever reason demand was so high. The Goodyear plant in Napanee has been around for 32, 35 years, whatever. But you had guys aging out, right? You had guys that had their 30 years in and they're done. So all of a sudden this plant is losing, you know, people left, right, and center, just, you know, not because people were disgruntled, but because it was retirement time. So, you know, there wasn't enough guys in the other millwright trades and electricians to start pulling into it. So they quickly realized that the automotive trade, well, we don't hold certificates as machinists or millwrights or electricians. We can adapt. You know, what have we done for our entire careers? We fix things. We think outside the box and we get stuff done. And that was the draw. But then there was also the draw that the base wage was, I think at the time it was close to 30% higher. And on top of that, there was 10% of your income went straight to your pension. The company, how does it work? If you contribute 4%, they match your 4%, and if 4% is the maximum you contribute, and if you contribute the maximum, they'll match it and add 2%. So I contribute 4 of my gross income, and they match it with 6%. So 10% of my gross income goes directly into my pension every year. There are quarterly performance bonuses based on how well the plant does. All those go into my retirement RRSP. If you have perfect attendance, there is a a healthy bonus that goes directly into my retirement RRSP. So my retirement RRSP, which I had nothing before, in 4 years, without a whole lot of other, you know, me stimulating it, has increased exponentially and you know, continues to do so. I never had any hope in hell of having any kind of a pension or retirement plan in the automotive industry. And on top of that, here we have this industry that is paying all of my uniform costs and you know, almost all of my health care. So what was costing me $500, $600 a month, 12 months of the year, is now included by my new career.
It's like,
so not only am I making 30 grand a year more than I was, now on top of that 30 grand a year, there's another 7,000-8,000 in other expenses that I don't have anymore. Not only that, but I'm not buying tools.
Yes.
And not only that, I'm not spending 40 hours a week at the dealership and then another 20 hours of my own time just trying to stay current. You know, nobody ever paid me for that time. That was what I did on my own, just so I could stay current, just so I could stay sharp, just so I could stay productive.
Yeah, just so you can stay at the you don't get left behind in your job, right? You don't get left behind in the shop, right?
That's feeding the addiction. You know what I mean? You know exactly what I mean.
Dude. I've gotten better. I don't geek out on it as much as I used to, but yeah, I used to. And it was like, I felt compelled, like I have to, because, I want to keep my skill set at least at that level, if not try to push for the next. Yeah. When you talk about like, it's, $500 a month that you're putting, that all of a sudden is being saved, that's like working 3 extra shifts. You know what I mean? That you don't have to work now. It's this industry can learn a lot from that, because like you said, we're very lucky in Canada. We were joking, my mom and I, the other night, about how she has friends and they want to have a child, so they didn't have a great healthcare plan where they were in the US. So they're saving up money to go have their first child. You know what I mean? We're lucky up here. But it's still, when you think about glasses, braces, contacts, like chiropractic treatment, massage, orthotics for your shoes. I got them for my boots. Friggin' things are expensive. It's $1,000 on my feet. When we look at that kind of stuff, some of us get clouded and we get too focused on, well, what's the job pay an hour? Right. And I think that comes from our background, you and I both, right? Our background of, okay, so I'm doing the math in my head. I get paid X per hour. The job pays X, right? I know how much money I'm going to make to do that job. Now, then it becomes a game of getting it done as fast as possible so you can get another one. So we lose sight sometimes. We don't think ahead. I'm terrible with money management. I'm terrible at investing for my future. I'm doing better than I was, but I'm still not where I need to be. And
see, I've flipped 100%. I don't know whether it was because I couldn't, but there was never any money to invest. Mm-hmm. But now that I have some more disposable income, I try to live at that same level that I did on my old income. But I know full well that I can't keep this up forever. My everything hurts. My eyes hurt, my hands hurt, my teeth hurt, holding a flashlight in your mouth for so many years. And I know it's finite, right? I'm 50 now. I maybe have another 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I am going to give it my absolute everything. And I know I'm not as fast as a lot of the young guys, but I outweigh some of these guys by 100, 120 pounds.
Yeah.
When there's heavy shit to lift, I'm the bulldog. I will do whatever I can to slug it out and be part of that crew and do my part. I simply cannot be what I was in the automotive trade. I said at the beginning, I feel like a first or second year apprentice now, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. Mm-hmm. AC electrical, I'm much better at it now. I'm comfortable with it now, and I know how to be safe around it. But it was so daunting when I first went in there.
Oh yeah,
dealing with PLCs and different platforms and different programming. If I dealt with it every day, I would probably be proficient at it. But at my end of the plant, I'm dealing with older equipment that it's been there since the plant was first built. Yeah. And I get to do what I love and what I do best, and that's fix stuff and make it work. And I don't want to steal David Freiberger's terminology, but at some point you just have to get it running. Don't get it right, just get it running.
Exactly.
Because there aren't parts, with this whole pandemic has changed every industry out there. Mm-hmm. We can't get parts, What are you supposed to do?
Well, and that's an interesting thing, because I've seen that now. You're kind of stepped away from the industry, but now everybody in the industry right now is talking about EEPROM, right? And how they're able to salvage a module now. Because in the dealer, there was only one way to do it, and that was the way the dealer way, and that was it. Yep. The way that these guys have been able to hack this and, chip repair and swapping chips so that, It's amazing, Dan. And I sit there and watch these way smarter cats than me do these videos and talk about this kind of stuff. And I'm lost. I'm totally like lost. They're just like at another level. And it's so cool. But it's been driven by the part shortage. It really has. And then I'll tell you, even the parts that you can get, the quality is terrible.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
Yep.
You know, brake rotors don't last as long as they did 2 years ago. I don't care what anybody says. They're rusting up faster than they were. You know, front end parts, garbage, man, garbage. Like,
I see the same thing with pressure transducers and steam fittings. You know, what would last 6 months is now lasting a month before it has to be replaced. It's the quality is just, it's gone. And what do? You adapt and you try to overcome, but it is what it is.
So you made oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So you made a good comment when we were talking real quick last night. You said that you'd seen now with all the kind of that the plant had hired away from Kingston, these techs that are now working for you or working with you, right? You working over them, whatever. They're on your team. You see that there's now a shortage that's even compounded within the technician shortage. But in my area, I would agree 100%. I talk to people all the time. In my area, I can't think of a shop that isn't trying to hire a tech right now. There was a shortage, and there's a massive shortage already in the industry. And then in my local area, it's huge because they sucked up a lot of the talent, right? So you're saying that now, you're talking last night, it's driven the prices up or the pay up in my area a little bit. It's still not anywhere near where it needs to be. We're still underpaid in this area by gross.
I agree.
But you're saying now that you're seeing some of the guys in the it's getting closer to what it's, you know, paying for your job. And you're seeing guys that are like, we talked last night, we talked to two guys that went back, you know, left the shift work thing, I think, is what is hard on some people, right? To make
it is. Personally, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be on nights this weekend, and I don't have any problem adapting to the flip flop back and forth. I personally, I like it. I love having days off during the week. You know, if I've got to deal with which I haven't had to deal with my entire life, if I have to deal with medical appointments or legal stuff, or you know, I'm doing a bunch of renovations to my house, I can do it myself, and I can do it during the week on my time off.
Yeah,
I'm still working the same amount of hours that I ever did at a shop, but it's spread out. You know, now it's 12-hour shifts, and it is what it is.
Do you find, I mean, I'm going to think that I already know the answer to this because I know what you're like. I was going to ask you, did you find the 12s hard to do? But then I think you and I are probably cut from the same, that most days we were probably there already 10 anyway. Yep. Right. So 2 more doesn't make a difference. Like I was,
I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah. I was the same when I was at the dealer. Like our 8 to 5 was our regular shift. And I was there most days, 7:15 till after 6. You know, that was the day for me. So it wasn't quite 12, but there's also days I was there till 9. There was lots of nights where the sales department would come walking through the shop and I'd still be there working on something. And they'd be like, you're still here? Yep. Okay. And the way that worked is they locked everything. You would bring your car in and park it in the service bay so that the security system was all like set up in the showroom and all that kind of jazz, but we didn't have security system back in the back shop. And you just drove out the door at the end door of the shop and it would open and you'd come down and everything was locked. And that's how you left. If you didn't bring your car in by that time and you walked through the main door and then got in your car, you'd set the alarm off, but you could drive out and it was cool. And I can remember so many nights, the one, I can't remember the salesman's name, but he'd come out there and he's like, you're still working? And I'd be, you know, arse deep in some caravan with the interior torn out of it, right? Fixing wiring under the carpet and all that kind of jazz. And he'd just shake his head and laugh. And there's some nights too, like the salesman, they had all off-brand stuff, right? They didn't drive. This is the thing. Yep. A lot of people, like the salesman, they tell you that's the greatest product in the world, but like most of the salesmen at Chrysler, they drove Honda, right? So the one old guy, he'd be like, will you look at my Honda? Sure. So like I'd be there at night and I'd look at his Honda, I'd put a set of brakes on it, or, you know, put a water pump or tie rod or something like that. Like it's just, they started to realize that, okay, like, wow, he's not scared to work on other brands. No, man. My background before I came here was, you know, a little crappy shop where we worked on anything. We worked on Saabs, we worked on Volvos, we worked on
Yep.
Dodges, we worked on, it didn't matter if it had wheels that came in, right? With old Triumph, sure, bring it in. Like garbage.
I worked for a lot of years for an independent guy here in Kingston. And he taught me so much. I mean, he was a grouchy old bastard and a horrible businessman, but a very, very sharp mechanic. And he always taught me, just be smarter than the car. And that gave me the ability to one day be working on a 38 Buick or a 36 Pierce Arrow. And, there's only so many times you can fix a cracked flathead 6-cylinder head because it's overheated. You've got to start figuring out what the hell you can do to fix the overheating problem.
Yeah.
And, it would be smarter than the car. So, I mean, at that time I had worked at Ford for a little bit and gone back to this independent garage. And I remember a Ford vehicle having an external water pump. And I think it was one of the double overhead cam bubble generation Tauruses.
Mm-hmm.
It was the 3-liter 6-cylinder had this external water pump.
Yeah.
And we added that, ended up saying, hey, why don't we just get one of those and add it to it? And we pumped coolant into the back of the cylinder, the head at the same time.
Yeah.
And, we adapted and we overcame. It was be smarter than the car. Yeah. So I could work on any of that old stuff. And then the very next day be, like you said, arse deep into the wiring problem on some new vehicle.
Yeah.
It was just all a question to be smarter than the car.
Yeah.
And I loved that challenge.
Yeah, I did too. Right. Like, and it didn't always pay well, but I was lucky. I've had good warranty clerks and I've had good advisors that, like really valued what I would do for them and made sure that it was going to be okay. Right.
Yeah. Here's my take on things, Jeff. These dealerships, a good dealership isn't a license to print money, but does very well. At least it was when I left. And I could have foreseen staying in that industry if you had a good dealership with a good dealer principal that understood everything that everyone went through.
Mm-hmm.
We as technicians are adaptable. There really isn't anything we can't do. I mean, lots of techs out there are pretty gruff and don't have the personality to deal with the general public, but lots of us do. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I've done the service advisor and the service manager role. I didn't like being a manager to my peers, but I liked the role because I could step up and explain to Mr. and Mrs. Smith why this wasn't a warranty claim and why we had to do what we had to do. And if you have a good dealer that recognizes those traits and allows those personality traits to flourish, when guys start to age out, you can move them into other positions. There's time with that solve.
Oh,
or if you went to a service advisor that knew what it was like to work on that vehicle or similar or any vehicle, and understood why you couldn't do it in the allotted 1 hour labor time. Mm-hmm. If you had everybody working together as a team, man, what an industry it would be.
Yeah, and so here's an interesting thing. We've got an episode that's going to drop. I think it comes out Tuesday. If not, it comes out very soon. There's another guy on TikTok, Chris Craig, and he's an advisor. And he talks about, so Chris, before he became an advisor, was a tech. And he didn't stay a tech very long. And he went into an advisorship role. And he moved around a lot. He's got a lot of horror stories from being an advisor. But he everything he says, the key thing with what you take from Chris is everything is a learning opportunity. You just got to treat it that way. But we had some interesting conversations about how, yes, if we could get more techs, if the pay wasn't such a pay cut when you're done, when you're aged out physically, right? And you can't, so because we all say, well, like you talked about, the foreman role looked like it was going to be your way to transition out, to finish out. We can only have one foreman in most shops. Unless you run 2 shifts, maybe you can have 2, right? But there's so many techs that when they age out, like, yes, it'd be great if you could go and work in parts. It could be great if you could go worked a service advisor position. I've never, ever, ever worked with a parts guy that was like had been an old tech. You know what I mean? In a dealership scenario, they tend to be young kids that they brought in because their PC skills were good, right? Or they were good.
Yeah.
But I always thought that would be great if you had the old techs that could transition that. But it's such a pay cut, right? It really is.
Yeah.
The advisor
and
role,
that's the other thing that has to change. I mean, you're never going to retain any talent if the money isn't there. Not when, well, I'm a perfect example. Me and 20 of my peers at my new career, we all left. Why did we leave? We can be as disgruntled as we want. We left for money. And we left for the security that the money provided, and not only the the difference in our disposable income, but the difference to all of a sudden we had a retirement plan.
Yeah.
And if I'm one of the older guys at the plant, right? So I hate to say that, but I am. But you've got guys that are coming in late 20s, some mid 20s, some early 30s. They can conceivably put in another 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. Yeah. I'm never going to max out my pension, but no. I'm going to do everything possible to jam as much into that pension RRSP and my other personal RRSP and tax-free savings account that I can now that I was never able to do before. That's my only hope.
and it's so funny. Like when I interviewed there, I was again the oldest guy interviewing that day. And it was the same thing. It was younger. And I think of the three other people that went in with me that day and we all did our testing. Wouldn't you know it, the same other three plus myself, we were all automotive techs.
Yep.
All interviewing for these jobs, right? Because they've been popped up on Indeed and popped up on, Job Monster and all that kind of stuff. And it's like they're hiring. And, if you have 310S, 310T certification, automotive truck coach, come apply for this job. We need your skill set. And, I remember it was good because you know how it is when you're tech, you go anywhere, right? You end up talking shop there I was. So I'm thinking as I'm doing the interview, I'm here with three other mechanics that are trying to get out. And then, it in the plan as well, even some of the established guys that have retired out now, they jumped to the plant 30 years ago where they had been techs. They weren't all millwrights, right? The guy that took me through, I can't remember his name, but we did the on hands rebuilding the pump. He was an old tech. He'd been a tech. He still worked at home. He's talking about his custom side by side that he built, right? He's still a tech, but he got out of the industry 25 years ago and took this great job when they built the plant there, right? Like, so it kind of made me laugh because, somebody back then probably would have never said to him, "Oh, you're a quitter," or "Oh, blah blah blah." Like, look at you. It's all. They probably would have went, "Look at John. He got himself a really good job when the plant opened 25 years ago. Now he's retiring out. He's like." But yet I see this animosity lately towards like young Colin. That's he's catching a lot of flack from some people that are like, "You're quitting." Somebody said, "Oh, you have no passion." It's not, I've known you a while. It's not, you don't lack passion. I don't lack passion. Somebody that gets burnt out and wants to quit and leave and go to somewhere else, it's not that they don't have passion, but everybody has a limit, right? Everybody has.
There was a time not that long ago where I would work my 8 to 5,
mm-hmm.
and then I would spend another 4 or 5 hours working on my race car.
Yeah.
Which wasn't really a race car, but it was autocross or whatever. It was my toy car.
Yeah.
And I mean, I miss doing that. I can't wait to have the time to start playing with my new project because now I have a little bit of disposable income that I can throw at it, and I've got to weigh the balance between how much do I want to put into retirement. But hey, I'm old, but I want to still have fun, and I want to do this while I can still wrench. So, I fully plan to open, the QA1 parts catalog and order everything for a Fox body for this old Fairmont Futura and go to town. It's like it's totally reinvigorated the passion that used to be there. It's relit the flame. I was out in my garage this afternoon hanging LED lights, thinking, okay, well, I can bring the Futura in here this winter, and I chopped half the built-in workbench out of the garage so I could slide my Epic toolbox into that corner, and I'm looking at it going, okay, well, the compressor's there. I don't have that many more air tools, but I can run air lines here, and it's just all that passion is starting to come back. It never fully leaves you.
Yeah.
And I still think that if the automotive industry could fuel that passion, while not grinding away and chewing us up and spitting us out, then what a fantastic industry it really would be.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers, but I don't regret leaving it.
I know some guys talk about like their dealership, maybe they send them to, they won tickets to the Molson Indy or something, right? And they came home absolutely jazzed about, fixing cars again, and wasn't that cool and all that kind of stuff. But I think the reality sets in really fast, right? When you come back, because you're still back to that same, oh, look at this first job I got handed today. Like it's, I'm not going to make any money on that. Like it just or, if we step away from the flat rate commission based kind of argument for a minute, if you get that car that just kicks your butt, and there's a deadline and everything else, that's the grind. You know what I mean? And we all just accept it and we embrace it, and it's cool. We work through it. I don't have, me, I don't have the passion for cars anymore. Yep. I'm all about the fishing thing. But I mean, it's the same thing. Like I know lots of techs that, well, actually our friend Mark still loves wrenching on cars, right? But Mark wrenches now on, like, his fun thing is he wrenches on boats, or he went and into that thing where now Mark does, standalone gen sets and stuff like that. Like there's so many things that if you're got that skill set that we have, I'm not saying, that to leave the automotive industry, but just keep that in mind. If you just think that, like, if you're so burnt out, don't think, okay, I want to go a completely different path and go into culinary or go into computers or something. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, do whatever makes you happy, but realize that you can take, like you did, that skill set that you have of fixing things, making things work, getting it running, not necessarily running right, but getting it running. You can take that and people will pay good money for that skill set that you bring, that outside of the box thinking, that problem solving ability, that, grind and grit and determination of, all that intuition that we develop from how something feels and sounds and smells and, how it acts. That's all stuff that people need. And sometimes it's a skill set that you don't learn it any other way, but just going through it. And I think it's a talent that is the next generation coming up. You and I got it a different way because we pissed around on, old stuff when it was before we was in a job. You know what I mean? You've heard me talking all the time about how Ian and I would fart around on that green old truck of his before we ever were mechanics, right? Yeah. It's what got us. So we developed a way of thinking and a way of, that's when we had the passion. The passion's not gone, but the grind is the job. The grind is the job. It's the way we have to approach the customers. It's the way we have to approach the vehicles. And I'm not in a bad place. I'm not. I'm in a place where, nobody's forcing me to turn X amount of hours by the end of the day. I left that life a long time ago. Yeah. I will not do it again. To me, it just doesn't jive. And it's not that I can't produce. There's just so many variables outside of my control that affect my production that it's a moot point at this point. We don't even discuss it. Did you fix the car? Yeah. Did we get it done on the day that it needed to be done? Yep. Cool. Right on. Perfect. Here's your paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we could go to that, then I think we would have a whole lot more people that we could sell this industry to.
Yeah.
And it's not a case of, I'm not saying that production doesn't matter. You and I have produced a lot of hours in our day. I've never had a problem production wise. It's just when we start to move up in that skill set, like you said, you were known as the guy that could go and fix anything they gave you. You got to the bottom of it, you fixed it, you made it work. I had that same thing. That has to be better compensated than we're currently doing in this industry. And there's so many.
Agree.
There's so many
because you're taking that guy that can do all that, and you're taking him out of regular production where he can make the money.
Yeah. And, you don't have 20 of them in a shop, right? You don't have 20. Yep. You might be lucky to have 4. Yeah. And say in a 20, you might have 25% of your guys, can do it. You might have,
and out of that, you usually have one guy that enjoys doing it,
right?
But how you stop enjoying it when you can't buy a pizza on Friday night or a 6-pack of beer because there isn't enough in the paycheck to do it.
Yeah, or you had just an absolute butt kicker of a week where it just seemed like it was one problem car after another, and you got through it, man, and you walked out there with 40, 48, 50, and then you watch the guy that, like, if his own car didn't start tomorrow, he'd have to come and ask you what was wrong.
Yeah.
And he made 60.
Yeah.
And his bay's a mess because every empty, it's full of transmission fluid jugs and transfer case with coolant and spark plugs are piled up on the end of the bench because he did a bunch of.
Yeah. He's done a week full of wallet flushes.
Yeah. So we have to remember that what we're selling here isn't time. What we're selling is a repair, and we're selling value. And sometimes that's going to be a lot more expensive than just an amount of hours put into the repair. We have to think about the value of who are we putting on that job? What are they worth to us? What do they normally could be doing? And then it's got to at least match that. And that's just good business, not just from paying the tech, but it's just good business. It just makes more sense, Would you, so I guess I don't have to ask, but I'll ask it anyway. You don't regret the change you made?
No, not at all.
No. And you would probably tell other people too, right? If you're not happy, seek something like that out.
Yep. Now that being said, if the industry was different, I would go back to it.
Yeah.
It's not that I dislike it, It had always been my dream to have a speed shop, but I don't think in our little corner of the world, I don't think that you could have that anymore because nobody wants to pay.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to, everyone wants the instant gratification of bolting something on. Nobody wants to pay for custom workmanship. Nobody wants to. So it is what it is. The harsh reality is to exist in our society with ever increasing costs of living and costs of housing. You go where the money is. So
very well put.
Do I regret leaving? No. Would I go back? If money wasn't an issue, if I was independently wealthy, I would probably go back because probably because it's what I know. It was close to 30 years that I did that. And as much as I was disgruntled and wanted to leave, and as much as I really enjoy my new trade, I mean, my new trade has given me a whole new skill set that I didn't have before. With my house renovations, I have wired things and moved outlets around and added circuits and I would never have thought of doing that before. Even though, I wiring was my jive. I love doing hard wiring stuff, but I'm not going to do it with AC electrical because that's going to kill me dead and it's going to hurt the whole time.
Yeah, it is. I used to joke and say, even if I won the lottery, the running joke, as I said, if I won $10 million tomorrow, I would come back and buy the dealership. And then I had like a list of people. I used to just tease them and say, I'd fire you, and you. And then I would just work here just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
So it's just, my answer is the same. I mean, I'll have to transition it eventually, but I mean, I still enjoy this industry, but where I get off now in this industry is doing like you and I are doing. We're talking about it, right? We're trying to make it better. We're trying to have the conversations about what makes it better for people. Why did a guy like yourself leave? Why did a guy at the top of his game leave it all behind? And it's not always to shine negative. I don't want to do that. And I will have people on that are killing it and loving it and in it and doing well. I've had them on before. I'll have them on again. I'll have more of them. But we have to tell both sides of the equation, because that's the only way that people that are listening can hear why people go. You know, I mean,
do you think it's a generational thing?
I honestly don't. I really don't, man. Like, think about it. We all got duped when it was pretty easy technology, right? Like, it was a carburetor and a distributor. And so that was going away when you and I were both coming up. But I mean, it was still, there was enough of them out there. And we were still like, I read Hot Rod magazine from the time I was probably 12 years old. And I, always bought them. Freiburger, like Roadkill, all that Carcraft, like that was my life. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to do, was like take a small block Chevy, and if it made 400 horsepower last week, I wanted to make 410 this week. That was what I wanted to do. You know, that's what got me into it. I'd grown up around it. My father was an auto body guy, so I mean, I was always around old cars. But when I got into the reality of the job, I realized that's not reality. I didn't mind what I was still doing, because at the end of the day, you're still taking something broken and you're improving it. That's addictive. Certain people really like that. So it's not a generational thing. That the idea that people say, well, the young people, they don't have this or they don't have that. The young people have just the same skill set that you and I do, right? It's just in a different way. What they get off on is they can go and hook up a computer and load software and EEPROM work and stuff better than any of us ever will. It's just where they're comfortable. They grew up with those components in their hand from the time they were 4, right? Some kids have a cell phone when they're 4 that they're playing with. Their technology is their thing. It's not a generational thing. It's not that they don't want to work, but man, they're smart enough to know that if I'm going to walk in and I'm going to get paid only $18 an hour, and I've got to be in charge of somebody's $100,000 Chevy, Suburban, Escalade, whatever. Yeah. And I'm in charge of making sure that thing leaves with the wheels torqued properly, all the oil in the engine, the TPMS relearn, the oil, oil life reset, and all that jazz for $18 an hour. Or I can go, do you want fries with that for $18 an hour? And I don't have to buy a bunch of tools, and I don't have to spend $250 on a pair of work boots, and I don't have to get docked out of my paycheck, $50 a week for uniforms. If we can realize that we're not playing ball yet with where we need to be to get the young people in, we're getting better. We're better. But we still have, when we look at the cost of everything, and we look at the tooling is such a huge thing. The tooling is such a huge thing. And I was talking to a local shop owner today, and he's trying to get somebody to come in. He just bought a used Maximizer from our friend Chuck, and it's going in his shop, and he's going to start filling tools into it, so that if he gets a really good apprentice, 3rd-year apprentice, somebody about to write his license, whatever, her license, and they're lacking, that's going to be theirs to use. I'm starting to see more and more shops do that. But I mean, think of it, when you and I were coming up 20 years ago, you couldn't have walked into any dealer or any shop and they would have bought you a tool cart and they would have bought you tools. It was just expected that, oh, you want to change oil here? You want to do brakes? You want to do tires? Okay, you're going to need a torque wrench. You're going to need a torque stick. You're going to need a $200 Ingersoll impact gun. You're going to need all these sockets. You're going to need wrenches. And don't be borrowing people's too many times, or we're going to, they're going to tell you to F off because 3 times and it's done. I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't be holding to them to that kind of thing, but it's such an obstacle now with the price of what stuff is.
It makes a difference, right? When I started at Goodyear, it's like, so I guess I should start to, what do I need for a tool list? Have you got a tool list? Oh yeah, don't worry about that right now. Well, I do have to worry about it because I don't want to come in here day one and not be prepared.
Yep.
Well, here's what's going to happen. Day one, we're going to give you a toolbox. Wait, what? Yeah, we're going to give you a toolbox. And then there's a tool list. And then we're going to give you, you don't have to take it, but we're going to give you the opportunity to take part of our tool purchase program. So we're going to give you a $3,000 chunk of money to go buy tools from our suppliers. And it will be 0 interest, payroll deduct and until it's paid off. So if you don't have extra stuff that you want to bring in, don't bring your Snap-on stuff in here because,
Yep.
other people might be using it. Then leave the good stuff at home, but we'll take care of you. And I was thinking to myself, wow, nobody's ever done that for me before. It was, I got some hand-me-down stuff along the way from a couple old techs here and there, but it was never stuff that they couldn't live without. It was just,
right.
This will make your life easier. Here's this old 9/16 that I bent and with 290 degrees in it, and it'll be great for adjusting distributors.
Yeah.
And I was given it when there was no more distributors to adjust, right? So
I've
that's
done
why
that
I
too.
ended up with it.
I've had some extra hammers. I've had some extra wrenches, some extra pliers, right? And I've seen the kid come in and he's a good kid. And, it's like you're seeing them and they're spending a fortune every week on the tool truck. And it's like, okay, do you need a set of slip joint pliers? Yeah. You need a set of side cutters? Okay, I'll bring you some in. They're just sitting at home in a bag. They're not doing it. They're riding around the back of my vehicle. Like, they're good stuff. They're old, but they still work, like quality stuff. Well, what I owe you for it? Just whenever. And that's the answer I give, whenever, which means then, no stress. It just means that I appreciate you. And, I can see that you're making an effort, you're working hard. And that's what I want to do to help you stay doing what you're doing, So I want to thank you for having this conversation.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
It's I think, like I said earlier, it's important. And I've been jiving to get you to do this because it's a different perspective than anybody that's been on yet, right? Like there's lots of us that have left, but they're kind of harder to connect with, and because of how I knew how you would be was why I could have you on, because you're going to be, honest and upfront and level headed about it all.
The biggest thing for me to get used to not doing it every day is, number one, I drive a new vehicle for a couple of reasons. I need something dependable to get me to and from work every day. And not that an old vehicle can't be dependable, but I bought a new vehicle because I needed something new that I didn't have to keep working on. And, I wanted something that I don't have to lie underneath in my gravel driveway anymore. That being said, I can't leave anything stock. But I have no problem farming out the stuff that I don't want to do anymore. For the first time in my life, it wasn't that long ago that I paid someone to build me an exhaust system, or I paid someone to put a lowering kit in my dually. And it was a hard pill to swallow. I paid Mark to fix my boat. It was like, well, number one, now I can afford to, but number two, I don't want to do it anymore. And now, I don't have the boat anymore. I had to let it go because other stuff had to take priority, but I don't regret it. But now, I take my truck in and I have it serviced at a small shop with a young owner operator has gone out on a limb and he's doing it on his own. So I support him. I don't ask what it costs. I don't expect to get any better deal than I would anywhere else. I expect it'll be a little bit less than the dealer, but that's, I'm not getting the pressure. So, it's just nice to be able to do that. And it's nice to be able to be the customer a little bit for a change as well.
Yeah. I hope to get there one day where, right now I drive a Jeep. It's pretty reliable, but it's not going to stay reliable forever. That's just the reality of it. And then, but I'm the same way, right? If I need my boat done, I just take it to a professional. I take it to Mark because I want, for me, it's my leisure time. It's my fun time. It needs to be at least as reliable as my daily. That's because that's, I'm working for my free time at this point,
Yeah. And if you've got to spend all your free time working on something that you use for your free time, then it stops becoming enjoyable. So at that point, And
that's the fine line, right? When we talk about the guys that go home from the job and then try to build a clientele or try to build a, they side hustle or whatever you want to call it, side work. that's not that I never did it, but I always wanted to make enough money when I was at the job that when I came home from the job, I didn't have to continue to work. If I did it, it's because I wanted to do it. I wanted to help a friend out. You know, I was helping the friend out at that point just for free, just for fun, just to, you know, I didn't want to have to, or I have to go home at 5 and work till 9, you know, 3 nights a week, do X amount of break jobs or something like that, just to have that extra money to go on vacation next year. And I don't knock the guys that do it. If you want to do that, man, do it. We shouldn't have to. You're not coming home from your job now and taking your skill set and going out and farming it, you know, to customers to undercut to get it, right? You just do your job and then you come home like every other trade. Yep. But, you know, anyway, I won't take up any more of your time. I see your little cute doggy there. I was going to want to play with you.
Yeah, she wants to go out.
Mine's outside right now, so I'll have to get her in. But I want to thank you, man, for coming on here. This is and I appreciate your support for the podcast. You've been awesome in terms of, you know, telling me how much you enjoy this episode and that episode, and you know, like you said, you've been listening to a bunch of them because it's just you put them on in the background, and that's what it's about. That's why I do this, right? I do this because, you know,
I can't believe how much I actually relate to some of these other guys, you know, and even the guys that I have difference of opinions with, and I've never met them. I don't know them. I probably never will meet them, but you know, I understand their point of view, and it's enjoyable.
Dude, so, my phone blows up with people that I've never met that just say every day I probably get a message from somebody saying, you know, what you said in that episode, or what he said in that episode, or what she said in that episode resonates to my core. You know what I mean? Like there's such a common thread, a common story between so many of us, right? You're not the only guy that's done what you've done. You're just the only guy that I knew from the plant that you know would tell that story. And like I said, I had you on because you wouldn't tell it with a thank F and I got the heck out of, you know, you didn't come across like that. And that's what I don't want, you know. I don't want it to be all angry and mad at it. I just want people to have a nice level-headed conversation that can say, this is why I did it. This is why it happened. This is why I think it's happening. And this is what we should do to stop it.
I spent a lot of good years in that trade, and they weren't all bad. So, no. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and shit talk it. I had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people. Well, you know, friends for life, that kind of thing, you know?
Exactly, bro. That's what I hope we can be. And that's the thing, like it, you know, starting like where we started, that post that you put up almost 4 years ago resonated with me because it was like, I don't even know that guy, but my God, I'm standing there applauding when he's, you know, saying.
Well, I couldn't believe the reaction it got. You know, I know that it got something like 1,100 shares off of mine alone, and then it was shared by, you know, countless other people, and I didn't realize how much of an effect it actually had. It just, you know, when you asked me if I would sit down and do this, I kind of reread it, and then I reread some of the comments, and there was people that, you know, I don't know, and they're in a completely different country, you know, a completely different demographic, and they're like, yeah, you know, right on, brother, you know, we feel you, and it's like, wow. So it's not just here, and it's not just me, and it's, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's in closing, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take people that feel the same way to tell their story and speak up and do something. We can't all just sit on our hands and complain, right? Yeah. You gotta, I say it all the time. If you're not happy at the job right now, there is no better time to go find another job than right now. You will go and make more money wherever you go because you can negotiate for it. They have no choice. We have them, unfortunately, at the advantage at the moment is on our side. So if you're not happy and you're listening to this,
you know, the last thing that someone at Toyota said to me when I tried to implement some changes to make things better, and it wasn't a tax, if you don't like it, there's the door.
Yeah.
Well, at one point it was just, you know, okay, there's the door.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm taking 30% of your text with me.
Hey, if you could do me a favor real quick and like, comment on, and share this episode, I'd really appreciate it. And please, most importantly, set the podcast to automatically download every Tuesday morning. As always, I'd like to thank our amazing guests for their perspectives and expertise, and I hope that you'll please join us again next week on this journey of change. Thank you to my partners in the ASA group and to the Changing the Industry podcast. Remember what I always say, in this industry, you get what you pay for. Here's hoping everyone finds their missing 10 millimeter, and we'll see you all again next time.